Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to our live today where we are talking about juicing, one of my favorite subjects, along with great new health insights about the benefits of juicing. I am Jen Longton. I am the VP of Marketing. Some people call me the Chief Juicing Officer of Pure Juicer. One of the most important things that we at Pure Juicer want everyone to know, though, is that our goal was to set out to create the best juicer in the world, but we are not medical experts. That is why it is such a pleasure to be joined by my new friend and a world-renowned doctor, scientist, New York Times bestselling author, Dr. William Li. Dr. Li, it is so great to have you here.
Great to see you too, Jen. I am always excited when I see all that stuff behind you in your kitchen. So we should, one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is to talk about things that we can juice or that you have juiced, and let's go ahead and exchange ideas about, health benefits and tastes and ways that you can actually create and use juicing.
Oh, yeah. So one of my favorite things in your book is how you break down what a healthy body is. A lot of people talk about green juice as the only kind of juice that you can have that is healthy, but there's so much more to it. And so I thought we could maybe just dive into the 5 defense systems in the body, and then we can dive into some juices and different foods that go along with it.
Yeah, no, that's a great segue into this, because when most people think about healthy juices, right? I mean, what's trending now are green juices. So anything that you can pop into a juicer and make it green, well, that's a lot of stuff. And that's good news, because pretty much Mother Nature's pharmacy with an F has a lot of stuff that has got green colors in it. And so people always ask me, what kind of green juice should I actually drink, or what kind of juice should I drink? What I tell people is that the answer is really not limited to a single juice, but really understanding how your body responds to whatever you're actually going to put into it, including different types of juices. So we've got health defense systems that are hardwired in our bodies. There's 5 of them: our circulation, our stem cells, our gut health, our DNA as a defense system, and of course our immunity. But when it comes to immunity, it's something that we're all thinking about now. Like, what can we do simply and deliciously that can boost our immunity? And so, a lot of different things in foods can boost immunity. One of them is actually citrus, because it contains a lot of vitamin C and healthy bioactives. So what do you got in terms of, oh, look at that, beautiful. So those of you who are, we start talking about green for green juice, but it could be orange and orange juices. I think that, you don't have to be a painter to appreciate the wonderful aspects of color, and color is almost a signal that Mother Nature's actually put something really good in what you're about to juice.
Oh, when you were talking about immunity, I love, in your book, you talk about how there's lots of tropical fruits that actually help you from DNA damage to your skin. I thought that was brilliant, right? Because it's in the summer where there's hot and there's sun. And when I think of citrus, especially in the wintertime, for a lot of us where it's still dark and cold, it's so great for our immune system. So I love oranges. I love citrus in the wintertime. Not only is it good for our immune system, but it's also in season. So it is less expensive. And it is something that we can naturally choose at the different markets and at the grocery so that we can incorporate more healthy living without it gouging every single cent that we make as well. So we need to have both.
Yeah, no, and I'll also say that when you go to the market, in the winter, there's lots of different kinds of citrus out there, right? So you've got your juicing oranges, you've got your caracara, you've got your mandarins, you get the tangerines. What I would say is that it doesn't really matter which one you choose. Get one that can make something that tastes good to you and that you can afford within your price range. And actually, if you're going to try different ones, appreciate the slightly different flavors. That's actually part of the wonderful thing about juicing.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the fun things is when I go to the store, I'll get things that I think that we'll eat and things that we might be able to juice. But if we're getting ready to either throw things out in a couple of days or eat them, I'll just throw them into juice. I mean, the beauty of juicing isn't so much that it has to be structured and that it has to be a juicing orange. The benefit is that you're getting the nutrients from those foods. I think you've taught me a lot about the fiber, which we'll get into that in a different area. But yeah, I juice everything from mandarins to grapefruit to oranges to lemons to turmeric and ginger, everything. I juice it all, and it's really fun and delicious.
So can I ask you for just a practical tip? So, it takes a little bit of setup to juice something. You're going to make a container of it. Let's tell people, like, what can you do to store it? What's the best way to keep it, and how long can you keep it for?
That's a great question. I mean, it will depend on the juicer that you have, but we'll talk about specifically with Pure Juicer. So a juice that is lighter in color will last 3 to 5 days. That is, when you think of an enzyme count, there was a study that was done, 3 to 5 days is the maximum that you can have. Ideally, you want to have it 3 days. I store everything in a glass container, and I store it all the way to the very top. That prevents any kind of oxygenation that would happen, that would destroy the nutrients that you are trying to get into your system. If you are doing something like a green juice, then it's really best to drink that within 24 to 48 hours. This one is packed with greens, but if you have cabbage or kale, you will actually start to smell the difference. And something if you don't drink it within 48 hours.
Well, the issue about cabbage, if you really think about it, once you start chopping things up and soaking it for long periods of time, you're starting to ferment, right? Which is how you make kimchi or sauerkraut. So what you're saying is that for vegetables, particularly cabbage and other things, drink the good stuff quickly. Yeah. Because unless you intend to ferment it, which I think most people are not intending to do, make it fresh, drink it fresh, get all the good stuff out of it. And then if you choose to actually do something that takes longer and you want to store it longer, that's a different project.
Absolutely. And then if you have enough juice that you can't drink within that time frame, freeze it, because it will last for 30 days. We know some people that it lasts for 4 months. I put them into ice cubes so that I incorporate them into my sparkling water or into other fresh juices. Lots and lots of ways that we're coming up with to be able to make juicing easier to incorporate into our lives. So
love those tips.
I'm so excited to learn more about angiogenesis. That is something that I learned from you. And I was wondering if you could talk about some of the fruits or vegetables that are good for that area of the defense system.
Yeah, well, so I study blood vessels, and the field that I work in is called angiogenesis. It sounds like a fancy word. Angio means blood or blood vessels, and genesis is growth. And so angiogenesis is how the body grows blood vessels. And it turns out that that's one of the most important health defenses because it's our circulation. It grows our circulation. Our circulation is 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside our bodies. And these are the highways and byways that bring whatever we're drinking from our juice, all those nutrients that we absorb in our digestive system have to actually go into those highways and byways to be delivered to our cells and our organs. And what's amazing is that something that comes out of a juicer that we drink that gets absorbed, that gets transported, not only goes from our mouth and our stomachs, it'll all the way go down to your tippy toes. And that's really how important angiogenesis is. Now, we want good circulation. So we want to make sure that we are helping our body grow all the blood vessels it needs. It turns out that fruit peel, like apple peel, for example, actually contains something called ursolic acid. And ursolic acid actually stimulates blood vessels from growing. And this is one of the reasons where I think if you can afford organic, here's a good reason to buy organic, because you want the fruit peel. The ursolic acid is actually in the peel. But go ahead and juice the whole thing, because now you get the fiber. And that fiber is good for another health defensive systems we'll talk about in a second. But I love the fact that you can actually juice apple. And with an apple, if you take a look in the drink section of your grocery store, and all the bottled stuff that other people make, big companies make, if you take a look at their ingredients, most of them use apple juice as the base for almost any other flavoring. And so here's a way for you to create your own base at home. Doesn't have to be just apple cider. And by the way, you want that cloudiness. The cloudiness actually is really great for you because that's got all these polyphenols from the meat of the apple itself.
What I love, I use apple in just about every juice, and I never really thought of it as a base like that. One of the things that's beautiful about making your own juice at home is that you don't have any pasteurization process. That's the reason why the juices last anywhere from 24 hours to 3 to 5 days. But this one has citrus in it. It has apples in it. It has yellow beet in it. And then what I did with the pulp is that I threw it into something else. So I love it because I know that family and myself, I'm getting more of the nutrients that I need every day without the pressure of trying to eat it all or prep it all. This allows me to have it plus eating the fiber along with it. So this is not a replacement to food. It's more of a complement to a diet that I want to have a healthier life.
And you just talked about yellow beets. Now, beets actually contain a lot of nitrogen from the soil. And when you actually drink or eat beets or consume beets, your tongue has its own healthy gut bacteria that change the nitrogen in beets into a form when you swallow it. It gets absorbed into your bloodstream as nitric oxide. That's so beautiful. I love that. I love the color. And that nitric oxide in your body actually helps your blood vessels grow. So it's another way, along with the apples, to support your circulation. So I love the fact that you've made that beautiful orange color.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned grapefruit. Grapefruit was in angiogenesis as well. Is that correct?
Right. So grapefruit actually helps angiogenesis from the other side of the equation. So let's walk around to the other side of angiogenesis, where we want to help our body keep just the right number of blood vessels, not too many. Too many blood vessels actually is not good for you. Like, life is all about balance, right? Excess isn't really good. You don't have enough, it's not good. If you have too many, it's also bad. So what happens when you have too many blood vessels? Well, it wreaks havoc in your health. For example, if you have a lot of blood vessels that grow in your eye, like in aging or in diabetes, those blood vessels can bleed and you can lose your vision. Or even more importantly is that our bodies are always forming these little microscopic tumors that are harmless cancers, and our immune system normally wipes them out. But if our these little microscopic cancers figure out how to hijack our angiogenesis system, they can selfishly grow blood vessels to feed themselves, and they can explode in growth. So I did research at the National Cancer Institute studying food. We didn't tell the NCI that we're just studying food. We gave them stuff and we labeled it as if it were a drug, and they were testing it with drugs, but we were actually putting stuff in from grapefruits. There are hesperidin and aerogenin. These are all these extracts that are present in the flesh of grapefruit. And what we found is that what's in a grapefruit will actually inhibit or starve angiogenesis or starve a cancer by cutting off its blood supply. So here's not only a good way to get vitamin C, which is also anti-inflammatory, but it's also a way of actually helping to right-size the circulation so you don't have too many blood vessels that grow. It's kind of a cancer-starving drink.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. And it gives you more reason to have grapefruit. Not everybody loves grapefruit. So in my household, it's not a favorite juice, but if I put it with orange juice and I throw in some pineapple juice, or I'll even throw in something else to kind of offset a little bit of the tang, or even pomelos, those are really good too. It's just a nice smooth juice that my family absolutely loves. So we've talked a lot about the different fruits that we can juice. And then one of the things that you have in your book that has really challenged me to start to incorporate the fiber that is from the pucks that do not go into the juice is our microbiome. And I was wondering if you could talk about that next.
Yeah, so our microbiome is another one of our health defense systems. It's the healthy gut bacteria inside our body. And when I went to medical school, I was taught by my professors that most bacteria around us and inside us is bad. And that's why we need to bust out our prescription pad for antibiotics to kill those bad bugs. All right. Well, it turns out that the entire textbook about bacteria has been rewritten because most of the bacteria in our body is actually good, healthy bacteria. We don't want to mess with our healthy bacteria because our healthy bacteria, also known as a gut microbiome, is about 39 trillion bacteria that live mostly inside our gut, our intestines. So if you think of our intestines like a big tube, like a garden hose, and you cut that garden hose in half, the bacteria live right in the middle, okay? And when we feed ourselves or drink juice, we will absorb some of those nutrients, some of those vitamins, some of those minerals in our intestines, but everything else goes down to our bacteria. So we're feeding our bacteria as well. I always talk about feeding bacteria like our pets. You got a cat, you got a dog, you got a goldfish, you're mindful that you're feeding them. And that's basically what we do for our gut microbiome. When we feed our gut microbiome and they're happy, they pay us back, those bacteria, by right-sizing our metabolism, by helping our blood sugars get used more efficiently, by helping us heal faster, by making our hair shiny, our skin glow, and by text messaging our brain to release social hormones like oxytocin. So here are bacteria in our gut that we don't see, we don't feel most of the time when they're healthy, that can really do a lot. So having juice and using fiber that's in our juice or from our juice in ways that we can actually consume is actually really good for our gut bacteria. They will thank you for it.
I love that. You know, you talk about pomegranate, you talk about all of the green leafy vegetables. I love incorporating as many different colors as I can into juices. That way I know that myself and my family are not only getting the nutrients from them, but then I'll throw them into chili. I've thrown them into your amazing purple potato soup, which if anyone doesn't have the book or doesn't have that recipe, I strongly suggest that you try it. It is so easy and delicious. And I noticed that my son, I mean, I want him to stay healthy and strong, and he really just wants to eat chicken and broccoli. And that is just not going to be enough. That will help his muscles, but that is not helping his gut. So I know for myself, the more colors and the pomegranate seeds, which he wouldn't necessarily eat, all of those things are really important for me to be able to get in on a more than monthly basis.
You know what a great project is you know what the periodic table is of chemicals, right?
Yes.
So if you were to go to a hardware store and get like a paint, a poster with all the different paint colors, yes, and you were to actually write down what food correlates to each paint color, you could actually kind of create your own kind of color scheme for fruits and vegetables for you to juice and actually use the fiber from. That's a kind of great way to keep changing it up so you're interested in what you're doing. You have to do the same thing over and over again.
Well, we need to do the 5 defense systems with the colors into it too. That way we can have a true masterpiece, because again, what you've talked about is just challenged me to think of different ways of using not just the juice for the nutrients, but then the fiber too, because I know how important that is.
That's right. That's right. Well, so you talked about pomegranate, and pomegranates do something different to your gut microbiome, because the ruby red seeds of pomegranate, which are used to make juice, contain something called elagitannins. These are natural chemicals. They're so beautiful and they taste great. You can put them into a salad. There's lots of different ways you can do them. But when you juice them, one of the things that is wonderful is to be able to press the juice through the skin, and because there's elagitannins in the skin as well, so you get a lot more. You get like the knockout punch of these elagitannins when you juice with the skin. Now, what does that do? Those elagitannins in your body, when you drink it, first of all, they're also cancer starting. They're also antioxidant. They also lower inflammation. But one of the great things about they do is they stimulate your gut to secrete healthy mucus. And that's normal. It sounds a little gross, but actually our gut likes to stimulate, at least likes to make mucus. And the bacteria love to grow in the mucus. The bacteria growing in mucus in our gut is like flowers growing in a flower bed that's been properly fertilized. They sprout, they bloom, they look great. And that's basically what pomegranate juice actually does in our gut. It helps these bacteria grow really well. One of the bacteria grows really well is called Akkermansia mucinophila, mucin like mucus. And that bacteria is a guardian of our health. It helps our immune system. It helps us fight cancer. It actually even appears to be able to help kind of make blood sugars good, to be able to help control and prevent diabetes. And so that's a function that a simple juice that's delicious to drink and easy to make, like pomegranate juice, is so valuable.
And speaking of, overall health and, there's no point in having that unless you have healthy DNA. One thing that you had in your book is that it's not just your own personal DNA, but what you're passing down to generations. And so we've touched on, microbiome, we've touched on the immune system, we've touched on angiogenesis. Maybe we can shift into DNA, because I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I didn't even know that you could eat foods to protect your DNA.
Yeah, well, look, our DNA is always thought of as our genetic code, right? Like it's kind of the blueprint for making proteins, and we need to make proteins in order to stay alive. That's kind of the building blocks of life, okay? But guess what? Researchers have shown that of the DNA, by the way, every cell in our body, we've got 40 trillion cells, every cell has DNA in it. The DNA is this double helix. If you've seen Jurassic Park, you know what it looks like. It's kind of like this loop. But did you know that every cell has 6 feet of DNA that's spooled together and tucked into that cell? All right. So that DNA, that 6 feet of DNA, only 3% of it is used to make proteins. The rest of it is kind of a command center to help the body kind of do everything else it needs to do, including protect our DNA. Now, why is protecting our DNA important? Because we don't want our DNA to mutate, right? I mean, unless you really want to be an X-Men, like the fact of the matter is that you want to stay human and you want to stay healthy as a human. And we've got all these things on our planet that actually assault our DNA. Ultraviolet radiation, you go out for a walk, you get ultraviolet radiation. Man, it feels good to be in the sunshine. But our body is hardwired to protect its DNA, so it neutralizes the incoming and fixes any DNA that could get damaged. I always tell people, if you're pumping gas in your car, filling your car with gas, do you stand upwind or downwind? And most people look at me like I asked a crazy question, but I say, if you can smell the fumes, you are smelling solvents that are getting into your lungs and damaging your DNA. So what can you actually use to fix your DNA? Well, it turns out that green, like broccoli, which you're holding up, actually has these powerful antioxidants, and they trigger your body to fix its DNA, repair the DNA. And so this is actually a really important thing. Our body does it already. It fixes it. It's kind of like having, think about like how important DNA is. It is like, if you've ever driven a highway filled with potholes, like what a pain that is. Like it's uncomfortable, it damages your car. Like you don't want your body to be like that. But imagine if our DNA defense is like a road crew that basically is on the road all the time, fixing those potholes when they're just tiny little cracks and just fixing them right up. That's what green vegetables, that's what fruits do. Kiwis can do that as well. They're remarkable to help our body amplify its DNA repair mechanisms.
It's phenomenal. And I have to say, it's kind of like exercise. I used to be in exercise science, and people would always come in and say, what is the best exercise what exercise is going to burn the most calories so that I'm going to be the thin, it's like, well, what do you like? You can't just do one thing. You have to use all of the different things to have a healthy lifestyle. And what I love is that broccoli and kale are not only good for protection of your DNA or rebuilding and repairing, but it's good for all of the defense systems that you're talking about.
It's got fiber in it, which is wonderful. It's got sulforaphanes and isothiocyanates. These are natural chemicals that actually inhibit angiogenesis. They starve cancers as well. And by the way, you're holding that broccoli by the stem. I want to point out that some research we've done actually showed that there's really great stuff in the trees, in the florets, which is what, we're always told to eat the broccoli trees. But in fact, there's twice as much of the good stuff in the stem. So if you're cooking with broccoli florets, which is really great, and you've got extra stems, juice them.
And I will say that they're sweeter. I find that when I juice, I absolutely get the broccoli with the longest stems because there's actually a sweetness to it. So if you're grinding them into a spaghetti sauce, if you're cooking with them, if you're juicing with them, they're actually delicious. And it's not just the flour that tastes good. I personally love the stems. So to know that there's more nutrients makes me even more excited.
Yeah, like a broccoli stem shake. or soup. You can actually put a little oregano powder in there, and it just changes this. It's got this like amazing, sophisticated flavor.
And if anyone hasn't seen the live that Dr. Lee and I have done before, we juice broccoli, kale, cabbage, and some green apple. And we actually go through how to make it. So, and then with that pulp, I threw that into spaghetti sauce, which was delicious.
The whole emphasis is to do things that taste great, that are also good for you. Like, this isn't about kind of like, handcuffing us to doing, acting like robots to do things to foods and drink and eat foods that we don't like. The whole point is to take advantage of what Mother Nature's already offered us and really be able to do some extra things to it to make it taste delicious and easy for us. That's also good for our health.
So Dr. Lee, as we go into the last defense system, I mean, not all of us have lived perfect lives, right? So we're not exactly as healthy as possible. Regeneration is one that I would love to just spend a little bit of time on, because it actually, in addition to the DNA, it sort of blew my mind that there was something that you could do to repair, and maybe the science around why that works.
Right. Well, so when we were kids, we were taught by our kindergarten teachers that starfish can regenerate and salamanders can regenerate, but people can't. But it turns out that humans do regenerate. And so that chapter in that textbook is being thrown out the window. The new textbook is being written. And we know that we actually regenerate because when we're born, we are born with extra stem cells. These stem cells were used to form our bodies in mom's womb. So our face, our lungs, our liver, all that kind of stuff. And when we were born, we got a lot of extra. It's like extra paint cans. After you paint a room, you always buy some extra. And what do you do at the end? You cap it up and stick it in your garage. And so what our body does at birth is it takes extra stem cells. We've got 750 million extra stem cells when we're born, and they pack them up in our bone marrow. Now, when we need them, our bone marrow sends them out like bees flying out of a hive. And certain foods can actually help our stem cells come out or can protect our stem cells. So berries are something that can actually help protect our stem cells. They've got lots of bioactives in them. Dark chocolate can actually, cacao can actually get our stem cells out as well. And by the way, one of the things that I'd be really interested in exploring from a juicing perspective is whether you could actually take the cacao pod and do anything with the skin around the seeds, or some other way of actually getting more flavanols out of the raw cacao. Like everybody eats the dark chocolate, which is great, but I'm wondering if there are other things we can do with the technique, the device of a juicer. So I think there's things that we can actually invent there. There's a ton of foods that actually protect our stem cells as well. And so that's one of the reasons that, I think foods that can stimulate prompt regeneration is just a whole new concept out there. You go to you've all seen driving to the strip mall, there's a little store in the corner or a little clinic in the corner, and so they can inject stem cells in your knee or your ankle. Well, in my opinion, as somebody who's worked in biotech, that's not ready for prime time yet, before we really know what works, but we do know that foods can actually do it.
Well, what I love today is that you have talked about and shared science that many of us have intuitively understood, but it's overwhelming and you don't quite know where to start. And for berries, when it comes to juicing, berries are fun to add to juice, but I would say that berries are fantastic just to run through the feed tube and then add it to oatmeal. One of the things I like to do with the juicer is actually just take frozen berries, because again, they're less expensive in the wintertime, so they're more affordable on a budget. I can put them into my oatmeal. Again, juicing is a complement to eating well. It is a nice, gentle way to break your fast in the morning. It is a nice way to be able to add fruits and vegetables that you wouldn't necessarily eat. It's a fun way to add different colors and mix different colors and different flavors to see what works. It's fun to start to use the pulp with it. But at the end of the day, juicing should complement a good diet. And thank you so much for helping us understand and make this a joy, make this what it should be, which is a joy to be healthy instead of it to be a burden, right?
Right. I mean, I think that we should all lean into our foods that are around us, especially seasonal foods. But in different seasons, you can always find extra foods, as you point out, that are frozen, that are just as good to be able to use if they're flash frozen. And so there's really, it's kind of like, it's not just that there's no excuse, but there's every reason to be able to lean into all these great foods that we've talked about today.
And hopefully this live has inspired people to take one extra step, or something to add into their lives to experiment with. I'm Jen from Pure Juicer. You can find out more recipes on our Instagram, Pure Juicer, or purejuicer.com, where we have blogs. But also go to Dr. Lee's account to find some of the fun lives that we've done. Hopefully we will do more of those as well. And I can't thank you enough for being here with me today.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. And, you know, this is sort of all a setup for the content that I talk about in my masterclass, which allows people to even learn more about things that you can juice and ways that you can actually activate your health defenses. And so my next masterclass is on Monday, January 31st, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, January 1st, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You're going to receive a replay of this event along with a link to register for this masterclass, or you can go to drwilliamlee.com, drwilliamlee.com to register. It's great to see you, Jen. I so appreciate you joining me to talk about foods that we both love. And I thank everybody watching this for tuning in, and hope to see you at the masterclass.
Thank you so much. Enjoy.